Eric Hoffer once said, "How much easier is self-sacrifice than self-realization?" Chapter 8. The Story Behind Heart Virtues. What is your calling? Throughout history, everyday people have transformed their lives and become magnificent contributors to humanity. The process they put themselves through is the same. It has not changed for thousands of years. You may be ready to set foot on the path for which you were born and reclaim the life you've always envisioned, but how will you do it? One night, when I was 21 years old, I experienced the pain of not knowing the purpose of life or what to do with my life with such intensity that it nearly cost me my life. After 9 months with the company, living in an apartment in New Jersey near Newark, I was so miserable I could no longer stand it. I have never actually considered suicide, but that night I was in so much despair that I could see why some people do. I woke up at 2 a.m. sobbing, curled up in a ball with my fists on my face, thinking, there has got to be more to life than this. I cried out, "Lord, you either give me something to do or take my life because I am not willing to live like this anymore." Within a week, on a ski trip to Switzerland, I met a businessman who saved me from the lucrative but immoral job I had. I was so delighted to leave the large semiconductor corporation to start my own company writing artificial intelligence software, but the elation didn't last long. I was very successful and had lots of fun, but I know now that money and fun are a poor substitute for having the skills to create meaningful, fulfilling experiences at will. Again, I was disillusioned. That is when I stopped looking for fulfillment from the outside in and began seeking from the inside out. I became a monk and discovered a system that works like mathematics to create that fulfillment. I don't want anyone to endure that pain that I felt when I was 21 years old. That is why I'm committed to seeing that you have absolute clarity and confidence about your calling in life and why you are here. In order to express this commitment, I have created presentations and coaching programs for each step of the process. Whatever your calling is, please create a way for others to experience how much you care. Let's review the things that we've discussed so far. 1. Each person has one specific heart virtue that is creating his or her values, beliefs, and behaviors from the inside out. Our heart virtue is indestructible, immortal, invincible, and non-negotiable. It is not a characteristic you have, it has you. 2, we cannot change ourselves or others. The harder we try, the less we change. Others will resist if we try to change them. Trying to change them includes telling, blaming, criticizing, ridiculing, labeling, evaluating, judging, suggesting, helping, assisting, or supporting. 3, just listening and being interested, it's openness to doing things in new ways. It draws the brilliance out of people. 4, we will always yearn to make a meaningful contribution because we live in the field of evolity, which makes us yearn to evolve. Everyone always wants more. Permanent contentment is a myth. 5, we cannot find and follow our purpose in life, solo or in a group, because tribes hold us down and contribute to our blind spots. Our tribes have programmed us to live a small life. We have a blind spot that gets in the way of our greatest contribution because our brain's prime objective is survival, not fulfillment. 6, what does work is one-on-one mentoring. Instead of doing things solo or in a group, if we seek out mentors who we admire and who inspire us, these one-on-one relationships will naturally empower us to live a meaningful, fulfilling life. 7, our heart has a brain. We can use it to identify the kind of lifestyle, mentors, career, and relationships that will give us meaningful experiences. 8, our goosebumps and rage experiences guide us to our true passion. Goosebumps and rage experiences are those things that cause love and fulfillment to take over our bodies and minds, as well as those things that cause intolerance and anger to motivate us strongly. Taking an inventory of these two experiences lifts the veil from our eyes and allows us to see who we really are and what drives us. Goosebumps and rage are the results of our heart virtue being fulfilled or violated. Greg's story, Burning Desire. The burning desire to figure out life blazed in me at an early age. As a child, I was more interested in how toys worked than I was with playing with them. It seemed I always had to take things apart and put them back together before I could enjoy playing with them. My favorite gift was always a tool, a screwdriver, hammer, or voltmeter, something that could help me understand how things work on the inside. I can trace this desire back through my marriage, my years as a monk, years in artificial intelligence programming, flying planes, getting a degree in electrical engineering, studying quantum physics, and the wild partying of a driven teenager. In fact, I can trace this yearning back to my earliest memories. The first memory I have in this life is of a decision I made when I was 2 years old. I only have one memory from that period of my life. My parents had taken my 4-year-old sister and me to a small office building. While we were playing in the reception area, my parents met with someone in the other room. It was very quiet. The receptionist was cordial but solemn. I don't remember my parents coming out of the room. I just remember walking down the stairs and out the front door and standing on the sidewalk outside the office building with my mother holding my hand. She said a few words to my father. He replied, and then something very bad happened. My father walked off to the right across the street and got in his car. My mother walked off to the left, holding my sister's hand in her left hand and my hand in her right. I remember thinking as I stepped off the sidewalk, my father isn't coming back. This isn't right. By the time we had made it across the street to our car, I knew this was permanent. It was as if I left the curb as a carefree 2-year-old and arrived at the car as an adult with great responsibilities. When I left the curb, I was in a panic. My father's gone. How will we survive? By the time I reached the middle of the street, I was numb and confused. By the time we reached the car, I had calculated what I needed to do for my family in order to survive. During that walk to the car, it was as if I were being dragged down the left fork in a road. The right fork led to my father's car, and the left fork was my mother, sister, and me. I could tell by the feeling of it that there was no turning back, and I made my decision. I have to take care of my mother. Within a few months, my parents were divorced. The decision I made to step in and step up at age 2 was the result of a much larger and more serious decision I made at the exact time, which has completely shaped my life. I decided that I had to fix everything, and when I was 3 years old, I turned that desire on myself. From that day forward, my mind seemed to adopt a new pattern for solving life's problems. Whenever something seemed to go wrong, my mind went through this process. What can I fix outside me that will make me feel better inside? The burning desire to fix things did not leave me. In fact, it grew into a desire to fix whatever was not working anywhere around me. At age 9, I remember fixing electrical outlets, kitchen appliances, leaky plumbing, and anything related to a car. In high school, I loved sciences and hated history. My favorite class was quantum physics. I dreamed of being an inventor, like most boys dream of being a fireman. In college, I got a degree in electrical engineering because I knew that all things were made of energy, and I wanted to know how energy worked, so I could fix things. The harder I tried to fix things, the more miserable I became. My anguish reached a peak when I was 21 years old. Having taken a great job with the largest semiconductor manufacturer in the world, I should have been happy and fulfilled. Life was supposed to be meaningful. It wasn't. That is when I called out to God, Lord, give me something to live for, or take my life. I look at my life today, and I know my prayer was answered, not from God out there, but from his, or her if you prefer, excruciating silence. From this silence, an answer was created. Through God's refusal to give me an answer, I was forced to create my own. Nature abhors a vacuum. A big part of the answer came from the understanding that I cannot fix anyone else. Another part came when I realized what I yearned to contribute to the world. Finally, I created a plan around my vision of contribution. And so, here I am today telling you about heart virtues. As a monk, I had some really nasty surprises about the politics in a monastery. I had the impression that I was there for self-awareness and self-realization, but an opposing message I kept getting was to sacrifice myself. The physical and spiritual realities were not in alignment. A monastery is a place to get in touch with ourselves. It's also where we end up surrendering ourselves. This can become destructive when too much attention is put on destroying the ego and not having self-will. I couldn't reconcile the destruction of my ego with the goal of self-realization. I felt constantly out of alignment, and that led me to immense frustration. Then I learned to let my heart guide me, using my ego as a tool. I trust my heart and train my brain. There are different kinds of alignment. When our thoughts are in alignment with our actions, we are reliable. When our thoughts are in alignment with our spiritual purpose, but our actions are not in alignment with our spiritual purpose, we are confused and unpredictable. That is why people who are into metaphysics often can't seem to make a living. The spiritual and mental are aligned, but the physical isn't. If the physical and mental are in alignment, we will likely do great in the corporate arena. For me, it's more important to align physical and spiritual. Aligning my physical life with my spiritual life seems to cooperate with my soul's purpose for taking on a physical body. When we are physically and spiritually aligned, we make successful entrepreneurs because we can take our spiritual gift into our physical world. I realized that my high level of stress in the monastery was a kind of intolerance against this lack of alignment. People often ask me, "Why did you leave the monastery?" I explained that the first 5 years were fantastic, some of the best of my life. But then what happened was that I started to experience symptoms of stress because I was sacrificing my principles and convictions too much. For me, being in a monastery was a very dehumanizing process. It was as though I were living for the day I would die. I was sacrificing experiencing life, hoping that on the day I died, I would have earned some great experience after life. I was sitting at my desk one day, and suddenly, it was like a fuse literally snapped in my head. The stress had become too much for me. I felt imprisoned. I was forcing myself beyond what is healthy. I talked to counselors, and they sent me away for a retreat in the mountains, where I sat in nature for a while to regain my composure. And that was the beginning of the end of my life as a monk. Going through the gates. I have always considered myself to be unbearably average. Average height, average looks, average weight, average middle-class life. We all seem to think that we are just like everyone else, that everyone else experiences just as we do. After 7 years in the monastery, I had a discussion with my spiritual counselor because I could no longer feel God's presence. Fighting back the tears, I pled for understanding. I don't love God. My heart isn't into anything. I go through the motions but can't feel anything. His response was stern and mildly sarcastic. You attend a 6-hour meditation every week, and you participate in everything here. Those are not the actions of a man who does not love God. I tried to remind myself that loving God, even when I feel no love for God, is still love for God. But it wasn't helping. They don't talk about it, but 80% of the monks end up leaving eventually. And since I thought I was just average, I figured my time had come. A few weeks later, as I was walking the path from the monk's kitchen to the monk's office, the eldest and most respected monk said to me in passing, "A bird should not say I will be a dog." My frustration permeated everything, so I thought to myself, what did he mean by that? I knew what he meant. They had been trying to tell me for years that I was not cut out for that lifestyle. "You're so stubborn and so ambitious," they would say. Or, "Being a monk is not a question of willpower, Greg. It's a question of temperament." Up until the 7th year, I was able to consider it to be a test. The test was that I was supposed to keep on without being discouraged by anyone or anything. It reminded me of Hell Week at my college fraternity. The only requirement was that I survive the week, and if I really wanted it, I would never give up and I would keep coming back. The monastery, I figured, was just a bigger test. I was willing to stick it out to the bitter end. They, however, were not of the same mind. Shortly after I came back from my mountain retreat, I was called into a meeting with the most elder of monks, about 6 people in total. They reasoned with me, "You have been struggling a long time here. Maybe monastic life is just not for you." "I don't understand," I replied. "Monastic life is difficult for everyone." Then one of the monks said to me, "Why are you being so stubborn?" This was the same monk who had told me that a bird should not say, "I will be a dog." I was getting impatient. "Look, I didn't come here to try this. I'm dedicated to this path. I knew it wasn't going to be easy when I came here." "But what if it cost you your health?" said the wise old monk. I leaned into him. "I don't care if I end up drooling on myself in a wheelchair. I gave my life to God, and so it is no longer mine. If God wants me out in the world, he can send me on a mission." The old monk sat back in his chair, his face relaxed, and he smiled slightly through his words. "Oh, now I understand." He paused briefly. "You have 2 weeks." I argued for a few minutes, but it felt like I was trying to delay the tide. The meeting was adjourned. I went back to my cell and had the most bizarre 2-hour sobbing, laughing spell of my life. I felt horribly rejected and wonderfully relieved. 2 weeks later, I found myself sitting in a rental car with all my possessions in the back seat and trunk. As I approached the giant black iron gate, through which I had entered 8 years earlier, I pulled over and stopped before exiting. I tried somehow to turn being kicked out into something other than what it was. I imagined being a hero and going back in, unpacking my things and going back to work. "That's it," I thought to myself. "It's a test." I got out of my car and went straight to the office of the old monk. "I'm not leaving," I said sternly. "I am going to unpack my things and go back to work." He was silent for a moment. Just as I was about to consider his silence as consent, he said, "You took 4 vows, did you not?" "Yes," I responded. "And what are they?" he said dryly. "Chastity, simplicity or poverty, loyalty, and obedience," I replied. "Consider this to be an act of obedience," he said as he looked at me squarely. Back at the car, I was sitting and staring at the gate, trying to win the chess game after being checkmated. The reason I was so conflicted about leaving was because of an experience I'd had 8 years earlier, in the same spot where I was sitting in that car. It was the day I entered the monastery, and it was one of the most beautiful experiences of my life. Driving through those same gates 8 years earlier, I had heard the most beautiful voice say to me, "Welcome home." It was so tangible and real that I turned to the driver next to me and asked if he had heard it. He had not. My heart thrilled that day. I was so grateful to be home forever. As I sat there in the car, staring at the gate, I reached deep inside myself for some explanation. I know that voice was real. It was the most real thing I have ever experienced. How can I leave? This is home. I'll just have to pull over and sob, I thought. Perhaps a half hour passed. My mood became dark and heavy. What will I do? Where will I go? Then, somehow, I just surrendered. I stopped looking back at my past and looked out those black gates to the future. I started the car and rolled slowly toward that gate. The next 60 seconds would change my life forever. As I approached those black gates, a warm peace started to move through my body. Seconds later, it was accompanied by a flood of joy. As I passed through the gates, a giant rush of love went up and through my body as I heard that same beautiful voice say the same words, "Welcome home." Every cell of my body was singing. I was dancing in my seat as I drove down the winding mountain road. I thought I was leaving all my brothers and sisters for an empty world. In reality, I was leaving behind the few hundred for a few billion. I had been totally in delusion, thinking that God is more present in monasteries than in the world. This experience was the first of many in the following months that moved me away from my tribes. In this instance, it was my own internalized tribal thinking that kept me immobile. I wanted to fit in. I was afraid of the unknown. I was retreating from my true soul's passion, which was to teach the world the power of knowing one's heart virtue, and learning to truly listen, speak courageously, and make a contribution. The monks were my mentors. Each in his own way guided me toward the extraordinary life I lead today. Especially my dear friend the old monk, who cared more for me and about me than I dared imagine. He redefined for me what caring for others can mean. Do not be surprised if, like my mentors, your mentor points you in a direction that you long for, yet fear at the same time. Aldous Huxley said, "Facts do not cease to exist because they are ignored." Chapter 9. Examples of Heart Virtues. Here is a list of generic heart virtues. A specific person's heart virtue is generally a combination of these virtues. Acceptance. One who has a deep sense of surrender to reality, who humbly embraces the present without judgment or control. One who values the wisdom of what is. Acknowledgement. One who has an intuitive respect for life, who honors life with humility, reverence, and love. Honoring beauty. One who honors the essence of art and the nurturing message of nature, who respects the balance, elegance, and profound truth found in all form. Life aliveness. One who is committed to the full experience of life, embracing everything with profound celebration and gratitude. Appreciation and recognition. One who honors the value and significance of people and the power of life itself, the gratitude for all goodness. Approval. One who honors the core commitment of others with a motherly and unconditional love. Awareness receptivity. One who has the conscious power to be present, grounded in the radical acceptance of reality. Benevolence. One who intuits the greatness of inherent goodness, often masked by the judgmental mind, the heart's natural love serving others as self. Boldness. One who has the spark that creates fire, the vision that creates reality, whose actions inspire others to act. Bravery. One who has heard the call to courageous action, calling heroes to forsake their fantasy fears. Care. One who expresses the heart's natural love, surrendering in service to anyone in need. Cleanliness. One who honors the freedom found in order, the natural elegance of everything in balanced and beautiful place. Community, family. One who honors the heart's natural love for all as family, whose loyalty, commitment, and service is unconditional. Compassion. One who honors passion for others, combining the qualities of selfless love and service. Connection. One who honors an intuitive sense of love beneath the delusions that separate one and others. Consideration, thoughtfulness. One whose esteem and instinctive concern for others is larger than oneself. Conviction. One whose intuitive loyalty to inner truth is the bridge between belief and bold action. Dependability, reliability. One who honors the connection between one's small self and the larger self as represented in love and loyalty to others. Dedication. one powerfully and passionately committed to a cause, connecting the small self to something larger. Embracing, one who understands fierce false sense of isolation and includes others in its expanded love, the unconditional one who will end war. Empathy, one who feels for others as for self, leading to the unity of friendship, family, and the freedom of fearlessness. Encouragement, one who inspires the hearts of others, the chief power of parents, the mirror of the innermost soul. Equality, respect, one who honors all with the recognition of the power and nobility of their innermost self. Fairness, justice, one committed to honoring the just laws of life, consistent, ethical, high-minded, and balanced. Trust, one who intuits the proof of things unseen, the inspiration which goes beyond belief, the absolute truth beneath the relative world. Forgiveness, one who honors the message of mistakes and accepts the fact that beneath unreliable behavior is the reliability of the blissful spirit. Freedom, one who honors and embraces the right of everyone to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Friendship, one who honors love as the bridge to an ever-enlarging sense of self, supporting and sympathizing with the struggles of others. Empowering, one committed to awakening the power of others, the hallmark of personal security, complementing rather than competing with others. Generosity, one who honors the value of others, whose desire is to empower and enlighten them with the tangible bestowal of one's love. Gratitude, one who honors and appreciates all expressions of love, who sees the giver behind all gifts. Harmony, one who honors all loving connections, an intuitive appreciation for the oneness beneath often brutal duality. Honesty, sincerity, one who honors truth and transparency, believing virtue triumphs over vice, love over fear. Honor, one who exercises an inner commitment to the beauty and power of truth, in whose high-mindedness all virtues shall triumph. Hope, faith, one who honors an intuitive faith in the future, confident in the ultimate triumph of truth and love. Humility, one who honors the recognition that all are channels rather than creators, sharing with all the responsibility of life. Humor, joy, one who honors the wit and wisdom beneath life's sometimes seeming struggle, the intuition which allows the wise to wink. Independence, one who honors the right and responsibility of each individual and takes a stand for what means the most to him or her. Innocence, purity, one who honors the guiltless, guileless spirit of non-judgment and sees the simplicity of a child in himself and others. Inspiration, encouragement, one who honors the outer expression of the inner realization that each one has whatever one needs most within. Integrity, one committed to the congruency between inner beliefs and outer behaviors, the discipline and duty that leads to wisdom. Justice, one who honors above all a deep commitment to truth, fair, unbiased, and beyond duplicity and doubt. Kindness, one who lovingly honors the love in others, the innate recognition and realization that one is connected to all. Loyalty to principles, one who is committed to honoring in action the timeless laws of truth. It involves service and, most challenging, the surrender of self-sacrifice. Loyalty to people, one committed to others, honoring the value and virtue of another as oneself. Motivation, one who honors the value of motive as it translates into action, the power of purpose. Nature, one who honors the beauty, perfection, and meaning of our Mother Nature, whose laws are the laws of life. Nobility, one who honors the highest of human truths, valuing virtue, character, and commitment on its journey on the high road. Openness, one who intuitively trusts the transparency of truth, far from the fear of closed, less faith-based minds. Passion, one committed to honoring the energy of the heart expressed by heroes and those who love life. Patience, tolerance, one who honors others with the same understanding as he affords himself, the love behind all labor. Peace, harmony, one who honors above all the tranquil and natural which reign over all artificial with beauty, truth, and love. Perseverance, one who honors the indomitable power of persistence, the intuitive realization that the race shall be won by the steady, not the swift. Power, one committed to channeling the purity of power, demonstrating that the impossible is always inevitable. Protection, one who honors the devotion and duty of the strong to the weak, the joint responsibility to serve others as one shared self, and who would shield others from harm with their own body. Receptivity, one who honors the awareness and openness to life's virtue and value, the basis of insight, intuition, and genius. Recognition, one who honors the intuitive response to truth, who ever seeks the roots of the real. Relaxation, one who is intuitively committed to being calmly active and actively calm, open to the beauty of each moment. Reliability, one who is committed to honoring truth in action, who knows that dependability is its own reward. Respect, one who honors the equality and common inspired origin of life, who has a reverence for the rights of everyone. Responsibility, duty, one who has a sacred commitment to serve others with one's completely accountable actions. Thus, one's example becomes the great gift to all others. Reverence, one who acknowledges that love is larger than oneself, and that wisdom, in all its loving faces, lies in the many forms of worship. Self-confidence, one who honors the recognition that within the self lies the wisdom to outwit all the challenges of ever-changing life. Self-control, self-discipline, one who honors the realization that one's deepest fulfillment comes through attunement with the laws of life. Self-expression, one who honors his innermost inspirations by sharing with others what means the most to him. It is the honest, authentic, and intuitive. Self-esteem, one who honors the self-realization of self-regard and love. It grows out of self-respect, and when selfless, can be a gift to all. Self-respect, one who honors the profound value of oneself, honoring and empowering it until it becomes one's most powerful contribution. Self-reliance, one who honors the supreme commitment to personal responsibility, knowing that within the self, one has all power and all possibility. Serenity, one who honors the intuitive truth that lies in the subtlety of silence. The power proceeds from peace. Silence, one who is intuitively committed to reverence and respect for that peace which surpasseth all understanding. Sincerity, one who shares an intuitive openness to the forever changing face of truth, simple, childlike, ever willing to learn. Solitude, one who deeply respects that profound place where conflict cannot come, honoring an inner haven, the source of power and purpose. Spirituality, one who is committed to an intuitive inner reverence for the realization of spirit in all form, beyond the boundaries of religions. Tact, one who intuitively honors what is most meaningful to others, a subtle and silent expression of love. Thoughtfulness, one who honors the needs of others by intuitively filling that vacuum with love. Unity, connection, one who inclusively honors the fact that all creatures are connected with that same spirit in value and virtue. Tolerance, one who honors the fact that diversity is the law of life and intuits the potential of the whole being far greater than the sum of its parts. Tranquility, one who intuits that personal peace is the source of all peace, that sanity is born from simplicity. Trusting, one committed to trusting that life, like love, gains power from its perfection, that everything has both a plan and a purpose. Truth, one who is committed to respecting the implicit virtue and value of life, recognizing and responding to life's deepest meaning. Understanding, empathy, one who intuitively grasps the loving nature of life and reaches out to heal the delusions of doubt and fear. Valor, one committed to actively expressing the value of virtue at whatever cost to self. Wisdom, one who is committed to speaking and honoring truth, renouncing appearances, and taking a stand for what is of highest value. List of clients' heart virtues. These are generally preceded with the words, "I am committed to." Acceptance and acknowledgement. Acknowledging people's value. Appreciation amidst death. Authentic friendship. Believing in each other. Bringing God's message to women. Brotherhood and valor. Connecting others. Connecting to self and feeling alive. Death and new beginnings, resurrection. Developing people's potential to realize their dreams. Divine approval, sanction. Embracing life. Empowering women. Encouragement and enthusiasm. Experiencing aliveness. Experiencing the purpose in all things. Faith in parents. Freedom to grow. Freedom beyond the rules. Friendship. Harmonious serenity. Harmonizing with extraordinary intimacy. Healing messages to the world. Heroism in the face of death. Honor for playing our roles. Honoring life. Honoring love. Honoring the mentor. Inspiration and admiration. Inspiring aliveness. Integrity and inspiration. Intimacy that leads to clarity. Leadership and teamwork. Liberating human potential. Liberating uniqueness. Liberation and freedom. Living open-mindedly. Lives of fun and celebration. Loyalty to family. Loyalty to friends. Loyalty to principles. Maternal compassion. Men's enlightenment. Motherly love and tenderness. Nurturing youth. Opening to new life. Passion for human potential. Peaceful intimacy. Peaceful unity. People living lives they love. People playing their roles. Authenticity. Perseverance in friendship. Perseverance that leads to trust. Personal grace. Playing a role for others' entertainment. Positive communication. Powerful one-on-one partnerships. Realization of wisdom. Recognition and acknowledgement. Recognition and honor. Redemption rising from the ashes. Respectful romances. Resurrecting the underdog. revealing divinity, revealing purpose, revealing wisdom, reward for merit, sacrifice for spirituality, martyrdom, self-authenticity, self-confidence, self-esteem and evolution, self-exploration, self-expression, self-expression and acknowledgement, self-realization and reward, self-realized power, self-recognition, self-reliance, self-worth, spiritual integrity, standing for others, brotherhood, standing for the truth, stepping into manhood, surprising power, taking a stand for your truth, taking a stand for what's most meaningful to you, transforming diversity, truth and acknowledgement, truth and dependability, unique, authentic expression, unity and communion, upholding the truth, vulnerability that reveals truth. Alan Kay said the best way to predict the future is to invent it. Chapter 10, Heart Virtue Success Stories. With the realization of your heart virtue, you are ready to create your vision. A vision is your powerful hallucination of how you will contribute to the world. This chapter tells the stories of the moment when several people realized their heart virtue and created their visions. Here are 6 stories of individuals who have discovered their heart virtues, created visions and mission plans, and are now contributing despite internal and external obstacles. As I said in the chapter about tribes and blind spots, following your heart virtue is not easy at first, and yet somehow it seems natural and effortless. These stories are meant to inspire and encourage amidst sidetracking circumstances. Jason, I care and I matter. One evening, I was called to speak to a group of people living in a substance abuse clinic. Most of the people in the audience were in their early 20s, but a few were a bit more mature. One of these was Jason, who was around 50 years old. I didn't know what drug Jason had been abusing, but I could see in the way his body slumped on the couch and the expression of abject misery on his face that he had beaten himself up inside and out. Throughout my presentation, Jason remained in an almost fetal position on the couch, his body language screaming, "There's no hope for me. I want to die. Why bother?" I knew a little of Jason's story. I knew that Jason and his big brother had started a company together. The company had taken off over the last 30 years and become a fantastic success, bigger than either man had imagined it could be. Then a dispute between his brothers grew and eventually exploded into a vicious lawsuit. At the end of it, Jason had lost his share of the company. He had spent a fortune on legal proceedings and was watching his funds dwindle as he wasted away in a drugged-out stupor. He had finally pulled himself together enough to stop using, but his outlook on life was completely colored by the betrayal and the loss he had suffered. When it came time for me to work with someone in the group to help each determine their own heart virtue, I asked Jason if he would like to be the first so I could show others the process. He agreed. Together we walked through his experiences of goosebumps and rage until a theme emerged. We had discussed Jason's heart virtue as being liberating abused children. At this point, Jason began to sit up slightly, but still had a look of pain and resignation on his face. We began to explore ways to contribute to the world by liberating abused children. "How can I do that?" he asked me near tears. "I don't have a business anymore." "Start a new business," I suggested. "But how? Before I had my brother's money to start the business," he argued. "You can start a new business," I encouraged him again. "Just take the first steps and see what happens." Eventually, I won the inside-out versus outside-in wrestling match. Jason realized that something inside him cared and will never stop, and so, suddenly, he mattered. He sat up straight. Then he stood up. His expression began to change as he sat down again. His face was beaming, full of relief, hope, and excitement. He began to talk excitedly about liberating abused children and how he could contribute to the world this way. Jason learned how to resist drugs and re-enter society because he had a greater yes. Many people break their addictions and live an extraordinary, fulfilled life without knowing their heart virtue. But it's easier when we know there is something greater than us that we can rely on from the inside out. My goal is to see that he is so fulfilled in his life, he forgets where he left his drugs. Christine's Paradox. Christine, the 19-year-old girl from Chapter 1, is committed to empowering women. She sat in my studio in tears. "I'm only 19 and you're telling me I can change the world." She was feeling unqualified, an unempowered woman committed to empowering women. We are incredibly powerful and amazing children of God, and for us to be held down, we have to be hit in our Achilles heel, our heart virtue. Our heart virtue is the most powerful part of us. It is indestructible, immortal, and invincible, yet it is also the most vulnerable, sensitive part of us. I had the same experience as Jason and Christine. I joined the monastery and got completely off my path. My Achilles heel was to experience a lack of integrity or alignment between my spiritual and physical realities. The most powerful part was working against me. It was like being on a sailboat, ready to sail, raising the main sheet, and heading out to sea, but the boat is still tied to the dock and the anchor has not been pulled up. Jenna, bridging the future and present. I was working with a woman named Jenna. At the time we worked together, she was constantly struggling to get a networking group off the ground to create a steady stream of income. She was particularly passionate about playing a major role promoting women. The more I listened, the more obvious it became that her heart virtue is seeing that women are acknowledged for their high levels of accomplishment. She was constantly saying, "I'm not making enough money." She began to realize that she was not feeling recognized for her accomplishments. I said, "What if you became the source of recognizing people for their accomplishments? What if you call every woman you work with and acknowledge each of them and tell them that you're proud of them for everything they've accomplished?" She said, "But some of these people are not doing their best." I said, "Okay, but that is never 100% true. Besides, intention comes before results. So if you appreciate them for their potential, maybe they will rise to the occasion." Jenna called each person, appreciating them for assumed future performance, not to get the results, but to express her heart virtue authentically. She told each of them, "I'm so proud of you for stepping into this. Imagine when you're so successful and confident, you'll only work when you want to." She allowed herself to be her heart virtue. A month later, she called the vice president of the company and arranged for me to do a teleclass for all her colleagues. She stepped into her heart virtue, and it made her a powerful contributor. She is now a very successful role model in her company, and more importantly, she loves her life. Living his message. One of my clients is a paraplegic. He had been a very successful athlete, but he had an accident. He came down on the court and snapped his neck. It happened when he was 18. When I met him, he was 25 and could only lay on the bed and move his arms a little bit. But when he spoke, I could hear a poetic potential in his voice. He had a beautiful message to deliver to the world, but he wasn't being paid much to deliver it. His heart virtue was appreciation for life. He was the kind of guy who could not handle killing anything, from animals to trees to bugs to a child's beautiful dream. In the beginning, this man was talking about how people should appreciate life. I said, "What is your most tear-jerking winning story about life?" He told me about the time he went skydiving as a paraplegic. He's committed to appreciation for life, and he ended up being a paraplegic, which is a position where people have a good reason not to appreciate life. He said to me, "I don't know why I can't communicate my message effectively." I shared with him the 4 building blocks to powerful presentations. 1, winning stories. 2, quotes by famous heroes. 3, experiential exercises. And 4, powerful interactive questions. We talked about using winning stories and quotes by people who have inspired him in his presentation. I encouraged him to take his audience through an experiential exercise that conveyed his message, and that gave them the experience of his theme. We built questions about the experience he was trying to convey to his presentation. Then he recited this quote from Robert Kennedy. Some people see things as they are and ask why. Others see things as they could be and ask why not. He then told another winning story about the first time he got back on the court. He went from making $1,500 per speech to $5,000 per speech overnight. This man began to get standing ovations. The real message here is, know yourself, communicate beautifully, and make a contribution. Communicating beautifully bridges the gap between our spiritual strengths and our physical effectiveness, taking us through what seems to be overwhelming circumstances with three simple tools: phone calls, meetings, and documents. Anne, from fear to excitement. Another client of mine, Anne, was traumatized as a young girl. She was beaten by her father, so she learned that to survive in her family of origin, she had to become quiet and insignificant. Her heart virtue was about the power of children. She married, and now 30 years later, her husband had set things up so that only he had access to their $150 million in assets. He would pick out properties, and she had worked full-time for decades to close the deals. Yet he told her it was his money, and she had no right to it. They had 3 children, but she had never told them their father had taken this selfish stance about their money. She never confronted her husband about their assets. She went to a lawyer and found out that she owned 50% of their assets. For a decade, he had her on a thin leash where she couldn't even buy shoes without worrying if she was doing something wrong. Anne got together with her kids, and together they confronted her husband on his control of the money. I cannot describe to you how much this confrontation terrified this woman. This terrified her because she had to rise up and be significant. Yet she did it. How? She told him, "If you don't set up trusts for the kids and put 50% in my name, my lawyer will be in contact with you." She told me that she couldn't have done it alone or before she realized her heart virtue. Anne was committed to the power of children, and this empowered her to stand for her children. When she came to me, she was having trouble paying my bill. When she left, she had millions. Michelle, a flood of giving. Michelle is an Olympic gold medalist from Vancouver. Her heart virtue is committed to what children can do for humanity. Michelle came down to Los Angeles to be on my television show, and she brought her 11-year-old daughter, Alyssa. She had taken her children on a trip to Mexico the year before. While they were there, they left some toys with a few of the local children they'd been playing with because the kids had nearly nothing. A year later, Michelle was driving down the road and her kids were fighting in the car. To quiet them down, she said, "Where do you want to go on your summer vacation?" Instantly, the children responded, "We want to go to Mexico, and this time can we bring some toys for the kids there?" This woman, her children, and 70 other children from local schools in Vancouver ended up collecting 3,000 packages with clothes, toys, and a friendly letter. They got a plane donated for the trip. These children and their parents went down with 3,000 packages and hand-delivered them to the kids in Mexico. While she was on my show, this little girl looked up with a wondrous expression and said, "If kids can do that, imagine what adults can do." When we stand in the power of our heart virtue and commit to make a contribution to the world, many forces in nature will assist us. As we step into our core passion and our own convictions, we are living our life's purpose, pleasing to our very molecules and to God, being who we were born to be. That is the experience we are seeking. Abraham Maslow said, "What we can be, we must be." Chapter 11, about the author. Greg Moores graduated from Stevens Institute of Technology with a Bachelor of Engineering degree where he studied energy, electricity, magnetism, field theory, thermodynamics, and quantum physics. He worked as an engineer for Intel Corporation until he left to start an artificial intelligence computer company. In 1988, Greg moved to California to become a monk. For the next 8 years, he sought extensive spiritual training, logging over 12,000 hours in silent meditation. His fascination with human potential led him to research the lives of history's heroes and what they did to live such beautiful lives. He created a 3-step training program based on his findings. Greg's studies and his spiritual vocation are balanced with a passionate love for experiential psychology. These are his tools for empowering others in their career and their relationships. In 1998, with a clear vision of what he was meant to do in life, he founded Life Camp Incorporated, a personal training, coaching, and consulting company. Through his services, Greg trains adults to live successful, fulfilling lives. When participants are able to uncover the virtues that are most meaningful to them and their hidden gifts, they can share them with others. And in the process, they will be richly rewarded. Through his Life Camp training sessions, he leads participants through a courageous and awakening journey to uncover their deepest passions and understand why it is so important to embrace them. Life Camp training sessions are designed to bring out each individual's brilliance toward more fulfilling lives, careers, and relationships. Greg is also an accomplished speaker and facilitator for experiential workshops and seminars. His topics include finding your purpose, marriage, communication, parenting, and addiction and intervention. He offers books, workbooks, audio CDs, articles, videos, private and group coaching, and he also trains coaches and speakers. Those who are interested can be trained and certified in the Life Camp coaching process to identify their clients' heart virtues and show them how to create meaningful experiences in their lives. Greg's techniques are most effective with people seeking personal empowerment. His clients have included at-risk teens and their parents, Olympic gold medalists, Academy Award winners, Grammy and Emmy Award winners, religious organizations, and networking groups. No matter whom his client, they will discover and create the life of fulfillment they yearn for. For more information on Greg Moores and the services he offers, visit http://www.lifecamp.com.